Mayor Brandon Johnson revealed his budget plan today to close a more than $1 billion budget gap in the face of what he says are fewer federal dollars in COVID relief money running dry.
America, Chicago just became the poster child for everything wrong with Democrat governance, and what I'm about to show you is going to blow your mind. Mayor Brandon Johnson, an elementary school teacher with zero business experience, just unveiled a $1.5 billion budget deficit that's about to crush Chicago taxpayers. But here's the part that's going to make your blood boil. While working families are about to get hit with a massive tax increase, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker mysteriously won $1.4 million gambling in Vegas. And the cherry on top, Trump had to ask the Supreme Court to deploy the National Guard because Chicago can't even maintain basic law and order anymore.
Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson unveiled his 2026 budget plan today. Now, the gap in that budget is bigger than first thought. It is more than $1 billion. Now, the mayor promises no property tax hike and no grocery tax. So where is he going to find the money to plug that hole?
What is up, guys? Tyson Dela Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story is the perfect example of how Democrat politicians operate. They create disasters with taxpayer money. Then their wealthy allies get mysteriously lucky while regular people pay the price. Let me break this down for you because the corruption runs deeper than you think. Let me tell you about Brandon Mohawk Johnson, because this man's story is exactly why you don't put unqualified people in charge of major cities. This guy was literally teaching elementary school kids just a few years ago, and now he's trying to manage a budget bigger than some countries' entire economies. We've been talking about this budget disaster months ago when they said the deficit would be $1.15 billion. Now add another 30-40% to that, and you get $1.5 billion. This is the deficit that Chicago is facing. These people can't even estimate their own failures correctly.
Did you convene a meeting with labor to discuss savings and efficiency and burden sharing on their part?
Well, we did. Well, first of all, let me just say, the vast majority of our corporate fund is geared towards community safety and public safety as a whole. So what we're talking about is we either challenge our larger corporations to put a little bit more skin in the game, or we cut 1,500 officers from our budget.
But here's where it gets absolutely insane. Instead of cutting wasteful spending that created this mess in the first place, Johnson's solution is to create brand new taxes that have never been tried before. This man wants to bring back the corporate head tax that Chicago got rid of over a decade ago because it was driving businesses out of the city. Do you know how stupid this is? Seattle, the city with Amazon and Microsoft headquarters, tried this exact same corporate head tax in 2018. They had to repeal it in less than a month because businesses were threatening to leave. If Seattle couldn't make it work, what makes you think this elementary school teacher thinks Chicago can?
We are asking large corporations and big tech companies that have made trillions of dollars to pitch in a little bit more.
The corruption runs so deep, they gave away close to $1 billion to illegal migrants while their own citizens are struggling with crime, failing schools, and crumbling infrastructure. $1 billion. And now you're asking taxpayers to cover the deficit they created by giving money away to people who weren't even supposed to be here. Now let me break down Johnson's brilliant tax scheme, because this is where it really gets crazy. This man doesn't want to bring back the corporate head tax. He wants to create a first of its kind social media tax. He's literally trying to tax Facebook, YouTube, and X at 50 cents per active user in Chicago.
His plan proposes a first of its kind social media tax to pay for mental health services, which Johnson estimates would raise $31 million by requiring social media companies to pay 50 cents per active user over 100,000 users in Chicago.
Think about how insane this is. Johnson thinks that he can tax the internet. Legal experts are already saying this will face massive court challenges and will likely get struck down faster than his corporate head tax idea. This elementary school teacher thinks he knows better than actual lawyers and economists. But wait, guys, it gets worse. Johnson also wants a yacht tax for people who dock boats in Chicago harbors and a new tax on online sports betting. This man is literally trying to tax everything that moves while the city falls falls apart around him.
There are other tax hikes in the mayor's budget plan, a new online sports wagering tax, as well as what's being called a yacht tax for those who pay boat mooring fees at city harbors. The mayor also wants a one-year hiring freeze. However, public safety jobs are exempt.
And here is the most pathetic part. Johnson has the audacity to blame Trump for Chicago's budget problems. Newsflash, Trump wasn't even in office when Chicago was already running a massive deficit. This is the Democrat playbook. When in doubt, blame Trump instead of taking responsibility for your own failures.
And so we believe this is a reasonable approach to generate revenue, to challenge our larger corporations to put more skin in the game, to ensure that we continue to make sure that our communities are driving violence down.
Now let's talk about Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's incredible luck in Las Vegas, because this story stinks worse than Chicago's budget. While working families in Illinois are about to get crushed by tax increases, this billionaire politician just happened to win $1.4 million gambling in Vegas.
Tax records show he and his wife's more than $10 million gross income is more than $1 million that comes from gambling winnings. So here's a deeper dive. As mentioned, almost $1.5 million is from gambling, about $4 million in capital gains, almost $4 million more in ordinary dividends.
When asked about this massive gambling windfall, Pritzker said he was in Las Vegas with his wife and friends and was incredibly lucky. Incredibly lucky. A politician winning $1.4 million at a casino. Let me tell you something, guys. I've been to Vegas casinos plenty of times, and I've never seen anybody win $1.4 million just by being incredibly lucky. Here's what gets me. This is the same J.B. Pritzker who controls Illinois' gaming regulations, who's been pushing for expanding gambling in the state, and who's benefited from gambling tax revenue. But we're supposed to believe that he got incredibly lucky and won $1.4 million fair and square. Think about the optics here. While Chicago taxpayers are about to get hit with the biggest tax increase in the city's history, their billionaire governor is out in Vegas winning more money in one trip than most people make in 20 years. This man's gambling winnings alone could fund several Chicago police officers for an entire year. But let me be real about something. When you're worth billions of dollars like Pritzker, what's $1.4 million to you? That's like finding a $20 bill in your couch cushions. But he's out here acting like he hit the lottery while his state falls apart. But the Chicago disaster gets even worse because the city is so out of control that President Trump had to ask the Supreme Court to allow National Guard deployment in the Chicago area. Think about that. The federal government has to intervene because local Democrats can't maintain basic law and order.
Some breaking news. The Trump administration on Friday asking the Supreme Court to allow the deployment of National Guard troops in the Chicago area. This escalates President Trump's conflict with Democratic governors over using the military on U.S. soil.
A federal judge initially blocked the National Guard deployment, claiming there was no substantial evidence that a danger of a rebellion is brewing in Illinois. No danger of a rebellion. Have you seen the crime statistics in Chicago? Have you seen the protests and civil unrest? This is exactly what happens when you have activist judges protecting failed Democrat policies. Chicago has some of the highest crime rates in the country. They're spending billions on illegal immigrants while their own citizens suffer, and now they're fighting federal efforts to restore order.
The emergency appeal to the High Court came after a judge prevented, for at least 2 weeks, the deployment of Guard members from Illinois and Texas to assist immigration enforcement. A federal appeals court refused to put the judge's order on hold.
The Supreme Court already handed Trump multiple victories on immigration enforcement, military policies, and federal spending. They also allowed him to ban transgender people from the military, clawing back millions in federal spending, and move aggressively on immigration enforcement. Here's what's really going to happen with Johnson's tax scheme. Businesses are going to leave Chicago in droves. The vacancy rate on the Magnificent Mile is already at historic highs, and downtown Chicago looks like a ghost town in many areas. The business community is already pushing back hard against Johnson Johnson's proposals. The Chicago Chamber of Commerce is calling these job-killing taxes, and they know what's coming: a mass exodus of companies and jobs to business-friendly states like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee. Johnson says he can't live in hypothetical, but this ain't hypothetical. It's exactly what happened in Seattle when they tried the same corporate head tax. Companies immediately started threatening to leave, and the city had to repeal the tax within a month.
The mayor's office clarifying that the corporate taxes prevent the need for any layoffs or a property tax hike at a time when Johnson says Trump's tax cuts are hurting working people.
We're talking about an additional $1,200 per year on average that working people will assume because of Donald Trump's cuts to the ultra-rich.
Meanwhile, Johnson has threatened to cut 1,500 police officers if businesses don't pay his extortion taxes. So let me get this straight. Chicago has massive crime problems, but instead of finding money in their bloated budget, they threaten to cut cops unless businesses pay up. This is exactly the kind of backwards thinking that's destroying American cities. They'll spend $1 billion on illegal immigrants, but they'll cut police officers if taxpayers don't fork over the money. Let's talk about who's going to suffer from the Chicago disaster: working families who can't afford to leave. While Pritzker wins millions gambling and Johnson plays with taxpayer money, regular people are going to get crushed. The middle class is going to get stuck with the bill, just like always. Rich people like Pritzker can move their money offshore or relocate to tax-friendly states. Poor people don't pay much in taxes anyways, so guess who's left holding the bag? Working families trying to make an honest living. The teachers union loves this budget because they're getting $500 million in surplus funds. Of course they love it. They're getting paid while taxpayers get robbed. That's how the corrupt system works. Here's what I keep telling you guys. When you let an elementary school teacher run a major city, this is what happens. This man has no idea how economics works, no understanding of business, no clue about fiscal responsibility, no clue how to get a proper adult haircut. He is literally learning on the job with taxpayer money. What we're seeing in Chicago is the same pattern happening in every Democrat-run city across America. Massive overspending, crushing tax increases, prioritizing illegal immigrants over citizens, and then blame Republicans when everything falls apart. Chicago's credit rating has been downgraded. The city literally has bad credit now. The whole city's credit gets downgraded. That means nobody trusts them to pay their bills. Chicago has worse credit than some individuals I know. For the people in Chicago, you are going to get hit with the biggest tax increase in the city's history. Property taxes, business taxes that gets passed down on to consumers, entertainment taxes, everything goes up, and the services aren't getting better. The crime isn't going down. Nothing's going to improve. You're just going to pay for more of the same dysfunction. The fact that Trump had to ask Supreme Court to deploy the National Guard tells you everything you need to know about the state of the city. The local government completely fails to maintain order, and the federal government has to step in. America, Chicago is a perfect example of what happens when you elect people based off of ideology instead of competence. An elementary school teacher with no business experience is now trying to tax his way out of a $1.5 billion hole that he helped create. Meanwhile, the billionaire governor is winning millions in Vegas while his state falls apart. And when the federal government tries to restore order, Democrat judges try to block it. This is the choice facing every American city: accountability or collapse. Chicago chose collapse, and now they're asking taxpayers to pay for their failures while threatening to cut police department if businesses don't pay extortion taxes. The good news is that President Trump is fighting back, the Supreme Court is supporting law and order, and working Americans are finally seeing through the Democrat lies. Chicago used to be a great American city. Now it's facing bankruptcy, and the people who are going to suffer the most are the working families who can't afford to leave. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.